Hi, Verbling. My name is Michaela. I'm from Phoenix, Arizona, and today we're talking about phrasal verbs. We're going to cover a lot, but we'll start from the beginning and hopefully get in a lot of practice time. If you guys are interested in following me on Facebook, I'll put my Facebook name in the chat box for you. It's Michaela Affidani. And if you'd like to schedule a tutor session with me, you can go to my profile. And I'll also link that in the chat box for you. All right, so let's get started. Today, we're going to be discussing phrasal verbs, and there's lots of different kinds of phrasal verbs. It's a really complex topic. So we'll start by talking about what a phrasal verb is. And hopefully someone can answer me in the chat box. What is a phrasal verb? Oh, it's so hot here right now. Okay. Elena, welcome to class. How are you?
Fine, thanks. How are you?
I'm doing well. I am refreshed by my weekend, and now I'm ready for a new week. Did you have anything fun during your weekend?
No, it has been a nice weekend, but quite normal. Nothing
All
special.
right. Relaxing then, just kind of hanging out.
Yes.
All right, sounds good. Alessia, welcome to class.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, Michaela. How are you?
Good, doing really well. It's nice to see my ladies in class today. So, Alessia, did you do anything fun this weekend?
Yes, yes. The last 2 weeks are very, very special because I arrived in San Francisco. So,
Wow.
yeah, now I'm staying in a beautiful place, a great city.
Very cool. That's exciting. So you've been busy moving and stuff, right?
Yeah, I spend a lot of funny day. Yeah.
Excellent. Sounds like a really cool change.
Thank you for asking.
All right. And Sajid, welcome to class. Sajid, are you there? I'll screen share really quick to show you a couple things. Sajid, if you're having trouble with your audio, you can come up here and click the
Yes, do you
settings
hear
button.
me?
Yes, I hear you perfectly now. Welcome to class, Sajid. I think this is my first time with you, right?
Yeah, I can class on Verbling.
Awesome. Where are you from?
I'm from Saudi Arabia.
Excellent. Another exotic country. Welcome to class, Sajid. We're happy to have you here. And next up is
Thank
Mustafa.
you.
How are you, Mustafa? Did you have a good weekend?
Yes, I have a nice weekend.
Excellent. What'd you do?
I enjoy playing chess and reading some books.
Ooh, a scholarly weekend.
Yeah.
All right. So to start class today, we're going to do a little review, or what probably is review for most of you. And I'd like to know, what is a phrasal verb? What makes a phrasal verb? So let's start there. And how about Alessia? Will you kindly go first for us and tell us a little bit about what a phrasal verb is?
Okay, I try to do. Phrasal verbs are verbs composed, making by one verb, for example, get, that then join related with other verbs, like, for example, on, way, off, out, and that kind of adverb change the meaning of the verbs and give it a different, a kind of different color of the meaning of the sentences.
Yes, excellent information. You gave us a lot about phrasal verbs, but it's a complex topic, so we still have more to cover. And Adrian, welcome to class.
Hello.
Hey, Adrian, happy to have you with us. Tell us what you know about phrasal verbs. What is a phrasal verb? How can you make a phrasal verb?
Phrasal verb is composed of two words, a verb, principal verb, a main verb, and the other word is a auxiliary. Maybe, yes. Is in the common is common you is its use it's very difficult because the meaning several times in sometimes the meaning it isn't easy easy to decodific.
Yeah, sometimes discovering the meaning of a phrasal verb really requires some work.
Yeah.
That's a lot of good information as well. And you referred to the two parts of the phrasal verbs, and you were very right about what exactly the parts are like. But I think I heard you call one the auxiliary. And usually we don't use that term. Usually we say the root verb or stem verb maybe. There's lots of different terms for the one part. And then the second part is called the particle, or some people will just say the preposition because most of the time it is a preposition. So we have those two parts. Is there anyone else in class who wants to add a little more about what a phrasal verb is before we go on to make some examples? I think.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I want to add that sometimes you have two prepositions instead of just one.
That is a very good point. Yes, there are some phrasal verbs that include more. Could be 3 or even in rare cases more particles, and that changes a little bit what the phrasal verb means and the function of it. That's a really good point. Thanks, Elena. All right. So now we're going to come up with some examples of phrasal verbs that you guys already know. Mostafa, help us out and start for us. Give us 2 or 3 phrasal verbs that you're already familiar with.
I think one is called used up.
Used up. Perfect.
Yes.
And what's the definition for used up?
I think used up to finish all the amounts or finish all the available quantity.
Could you make a sentence with it for us?
Like, I used up my patience, something like this.
Mostafa, are you still there?
Yes, I'm there. Can you hear me?
Sorry. Yes, I think we were having a little bit of connection difficulty, but I hear you again. So use used up in a sentence.
Yes, I used up my patience.
Okay, that works. You're all out of patience. You used up your patience. No more patience. Thanks very much, Mustafa. Sajid, can you do the same thing? Give us a good example of a phrasal verb. Tell us the definition and use it in a sentence.
Actually, no, I don't understand about it.
All right.
Can I join later?
Can you repeat that really quick?
Give me a little bit. I said, give me a little time.
Sure, no problem. My patience is not all used up. You can have as much time as you like. I'll go on to a couple other students and then I'll come back to you. So, Adrian, will you give us the next one? Come up with a phrasal verb you already know and its definition with an example sentence.
An example breakdown.
Excellent.
Breakdown. Yes.
Which means what?
Means separate something into component parts. Yeah.
Yeah, it can sometimes. So how can we use it in a sentence to mean to break into component parts?
For example, um, um, mm, is we spent a lot of money at the supermarket. When we broke the total down, we spend more in cleaning or
Yes, that's a very good example. So when we broke the total down, meaning we took the total and we put it in its separate individual parts, like this was food, this was cleaning products, this was pet supplies or something. Awesome. And that, as well as many other phrasal verbs, actually has more than one definition. So this is where it starts to become tricky, but we'll go on with that in a second. Alessia, you're up next. Give us an example, a definition, and a sentence using a phrasal verb.
Okay. Carry on. He carried on to annoy me, and carry on is it's difficult to explain the meaning with another kind of book. It's when someone is doing something and he do it for a long time, continuously doing something.
Yeah, that's a pretty good explanation. So how can you use it in a sentence then?
He carried on me. He carried on to annoy me.
Okay, he carried on to annoy me. Yes, that works. Thank you very much, Alessia. And Elena, you're the last one. Give us a phrasal verb you already know, plus the definition and an example sentence.
For example, to look forward to something. It means to wait when you want something to happen and you are waiting for it. For example, I was looking forward to this class because I want to learn about phrasal verbs.
Excellent. Lovely job. Thank you, Elena. And Sajid, do you feel like you're ready now, or would you like me to help you out a little bit with this exercise?
Yes, better. Can you help me, please?
Okay, so I'm going to give you a phrasal verb that you probably have already heard, and we'll come up with a definition together. So a simple example would be, I picked up the phone when my brother called. So I'll put this in the chat box. I picked up the phone when my brother called. And here we have the phrasal verb pick up. So what do you think it means, Sajid? When I say I pick up the phone, what does it mean? What am I going to do after I pick up the phone?
Definitely, you will speak on the phone.
Uh-huh. So another way to say that would be like answer the phone. So in this case, pick up and answer are the same. So in that way, we have a different definition for a phrasal verb. We've got one word that would be a normal verb, and then a phrasal verb that means almost equally the same thing. Does that make sense? I hope so. We're going to talk a lot more, so if you're still a little confused, hang in there. Another phrasal verb. And we'll work out all of the confusion in a second. So, in addition to us talking about phrasal verbs today, we're going to talk about different categories that phrasal verbs fall into. And some of the terminology that you guys might see if you're looking online for information or if you go to more future classes, there's different categories of phrasal verbs. And it changes the structure you see them in a sentence.
Okay.
Let's start with Mostafa. Do you know how we can categorize any phrasal verbs? Any ideas on that?
Indeed, I don't have something in my mind about this one.
Okay, I'll start us off then. Earlier, Elena mentioned that some phrasal verbs, we were talking about the normal phrasal verb, which has a main verb plus a particle. And then she mentioned that sometimes phrasal verbs have more than one particle, which is totally true. So we can categorize phrasal verbs into 2-word phrasal verbs and then 3 or 4-word phrasal verbs. Basically, there's a category for 2 words, and then there's a category for anything other than 2 words, anything more than 2 words. And of course, you have to have at least 2 words to be a phrasal verb. So that's 2 categories we can establish right there. Let's come up with some examples in that category. What are 2-word phrasal verbs? Elena, can you help us out? An example of a 2-word phrasal verb?
Dress up.
Dress up. Perfect. What about a 3-word phrasal verb?
My previous example, looking forward to.
Yes, looking forward to. Okay, so it changes the way we use them a little bit, and we're going to talk about that more when we talk about a different category. But those are 2 main categories. Does anyone else have another category they'd like to offer for phrasal verbs before I give you guys a couple other categories to come up with examples?
I think I know.
Go ahead, Elena. What's another category you can think of?
Yeah, separable and unseparable. When you put, if you put or can't put the object between the verb and the preposition, or not.
Yes, exactly. So we have some phrasal verbs where we can put an object in the middle, and some phrasal verbs where we can't. And Alessia, do you think you can give us any examples of separable or inseparable phrasal verbs?
It's difficult because I know that kind of difference and category between inseparable and separable. But in this moment, I'm sure that sometimes I use this kind of different verbs. But in this moment, I don't have and a good example because I'm not sure about it.
It's hard to think on your feet sometimes and get those examples. Do you have any other categories you can think of about phrasal verbs and what other categories they might fall into?
No.
All right. Then how about Adrian? Can you give us an example of separable and inseparable or another category of phrasal verbs?
I'm not sure about this. I don't know.
Okay, no problem. I'll give you guys a couple examples of those, but we'll wait a second. We're going to talk in detail about separable and inseparable. Another category of phrasal verb is transitive and intransitive. Has anybody heard of transitive and intransitive before?
I know what transitive and intransitive means, but in this moment I'm not sure to have in the brain a good idea about it. But then.
All right. So is there anything you want to share on the topic before I give you guys a couple hints here?
No, I prefer orti.
All right. So we have transitive and intransitive, which is the difference between a phrasal verb that takes an object and one that doesn't. So an example would be something like, let's see, to kick off a party, or to kick off a festival, to kick off the year, like maybe to kick off the new year. So it's similar to start, right? But we need to have an object with it. We can't just say, I started. We have to say, I started the day, I started the year, I started. So with kickoff, we have to use an object or it doesn't make sense. We can't just say, I kicked off. That's not a complete sentence in English. Now, on the other side, intransitive, that would be something like that doesn't take a verb. So it's not possible to add on an object. Lighten up is a good example of that. So I might joke with you guys and maybe I make someone upset. I joked too much and I made them upset. I might say, lighten up, I was just joking. Like, oh, it's not a big deal, don't be so serious. So the definition is don't be so serious. But we cannot add an object there. I can't say lighten up your face, lighten up your humor. I can't say that. I have to just say lighten up. Or I can say like, oh, Joe, lighten up. But I can't put an actual object onto the end of it. So we have separable and inseparable, transitive and intransitive, two words and multiple word phrasal verbs. Any other categories you guys can think of?
I hope not.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. The only other category there might be is formality. So most of the time, phrasal verbs are pretty casual, but of course, there's levels of casual. Some are so casual they're inappropriate. They might be rude. And then they're on the other end, it's like normal, polite conversation words. So we could separate into those categories as well, but we won't talk so much about that today because for the most part, phrasal verbs are already pretty casual. All right. Any questions before we dive deeper into the separable and inseparable phrasal verbs?
No.
Okay. And I'm going to stick some notes for you guys in the chat box. You guys can download them yourself and print them off if you want. And if not, you can share along with me. I'll open this as well so you guys can look off my screen. Okay. So, phrasal verbs that are separable and inseparable. Let's read a little bit about separable phrasal verbs first. I'm going to highlight a quick section here. And for the first section, let's have Sajid read for us. Can you see that, Sajid? Oops, uh-oh. All right, then how about Mustafa? Do you think you can read that first section for us about separable phrasal verbs?
Yeah, okay, I can read it. Okay, I will begin with the separable phrasal verbs can remain separated or together when using an object that is a noun or noun phrase. Examples, he paid back the debit or he paid the debit back. The company laid out quite a bit of research or the company laid quite a bit out of for research.
Thanks.
Okay.
So talking just about separable phrasal verbs, we have options here. It's a little more flexible. So if we're using a normal object, you can put it in the middle or at the end, and it's no big deal. But there's a little more information to it than that. So Elena, will you read the next section for us?
Yes. Separable phrasal verbs must be separated when a pronoun is used. Examples: we run it up by $50,000. They bailed him out of the situation. Frank paid it all back by the end of the month.
Thank you very much. It gets a little bit more rigid here when we're using a pronoun to refer to an object. So if you're using it, him, her, them, us, any of those object words, you have to put it in the middle for separable phrasal verbs. That's not an option. So do you guys have any questions on how separable phrasal verbs work when we use them with objects? Now, of course, we don't have to worry about any of this if it's intransitive. So if it doesn't take an object, then it doesn't matter if it's separable or inseparable, or I guess you could just assume that it is inseparable because we're not going to put anything in the middle. No other questions before we go on to inseparable phrasal verbs? All right, then moving on, let's find out what inseparable phrasal verbs are all about, starting with this section, which is for Alessia to read.
Yes. Inseparable phrasal verbs. Inseparable phrasal verb always remain together. It makes no difference if a noun or pronoun is used. Examples. He scraped by only 1,800 a month for 2 years. Separated by on it. Sorry, Michaela, could you zoom in a little bit?
Can I what?
Zoom in the. Okay, I take the PDF. Sorry, because I don't see very well. Is scraped by only 1,800 of month for 2 years. Is scraped by on it, not is scraped it by. They splashed out on a new office furniture. They splashed out on it, not they splashed out.
Excellent, thanks. So here we're a little more limited, but it's also less complicated. So with inseparable, you know that you'll never separate it. No big deal. Any questions on this before we read a couple tips and hints to help us with our practice today?
Yes, I never see scraped by, scraped on, and splashed out. Splash out.
The definitions for those?
Yeah, I don't know these verbs, the meaning.
Okay, so let's talk first about scraped by on. Can anyone give us the definition for that? Scraped by on? Anyone going to be brave and try to look at this sentence to see context? It's okay if you guys don't. All right. So to scrape by on means something like to survive through difficult conditions.
Okay.
So when he says he scraped by on only 800 a month for 2 years means that for this person is not enough money. It's difficult to survive with only 800 a month for this person, but he did it for 2 years.
Okay.
Okay. And the next one, splashed out on. Anyone want to help us with this definition before I tell you guys? All right. I'll go for it then. This would mean when you buy something that is a luxury. Like you spend a little extra money on a pair of new shoes or something special.
Okay, because you want to show something?
Yeah.
Buy to show?
Not necessarily buy to show other people, but something that you spent a little extra money on. Usually it's a luxury, not like your normal daily.
Okay, okay. It's like when you buy something, but it's very, very expensive, and it's like occasionally shopping.
Yeah, the occasional shopping, not everyday type stuff, but when you go to buy a new computer because you're retiring your old broken one or something.
Okay.
All right. So now we have a couple notes that hopefully will help you guys a bit. And this first one here, Sajid, will you read it for us?
Yes. All
Thank you.
phrasal verbs containing more than one particle are inseparable. Example, I have put up with the situation for more than 2 years.
Thanks. So this one fits into the category of multiple particles, something we talked about earlier. And we know that it's going to be inseparable because when you don't have two parts, there is no middle. So you can't put an object in the middle because there isn't a middle. And if you look at the other inseparable examples we had, they're all three verbs. Now, it doesn't have to be this way. There are some two-word phrasal verbs that are also inseparable, but very frequently it's mainly these three-word phrasal verbs because there's no middle part, so you can't put an object in the middle. All right. Oops, I don't know why this is here again. And last tip I have here is for Adrian to read.
Tip: if you are not sure whether a phrasal verb is separable or inseparable, always use a noun or noun phrase and not separate. In this manner, you will always be correct.
Okay. So there's a trick. If you have to make a sentence and it is important that you create it in a very correct format, you can always be right if you follow this formula. Just always use the noun instead of the pronoun and put it at the end instead of the middle. So it's a cheat. It's better to learn about which verbs are separable and which aren't, but if it's in an important situation, this is a good trick to always getting it right. Do you guys have any questions before we try out some sentences together? Okay. So let's start with separable phrasal verbs. I'm going to give each of you a separable phrasal verb and ask you to write a sentence using this separable phrasal verb. And because it's separable, I'm going to ask you guys to indeed separate it, meaning that whatever object you use, put it in the middle of the phrasal verb set. Are you guys ready?
Yes.
All right. Good. Enthusiasm. Yay. So, first up, I'm going to ask Sajid to write a sentence using bring up. Bring up to mean like introduce a topic. Bring up. And you're going to use an object in the middle of that because it's separable. Next up is Mustafa. And I'm going to ask you to use ask out. Ask out. You know
What
the
does it
definition of that? It's a tough one. It's common, but it's for a particular situation. It's when you ask a person to go on a date. So it's a little bit of a romantic phrasal verb.
Yeah, okay.
All right. Next up, Elena, you get call off. And Alessia, you get, how about?
Easy, please.
You want an easy one? How about check out?
Check out.
Check out.
Okay.
And this one actually has multiple meanings, but in this case, I'm going to say check out as in look at something. So
Look
like,
at.
yeah.
Hmm.
And I'll give you a quick example in case you're a little dubious about what this means. I might say, wow, check out that website.
Okay.
Or check
Okay.
the website out. Awesome. And Adrian, you're up next. How about cut out? Cut out. All right. Any questions on the definition, Adrian?
What is the meaning? The cut out?
This meaning would be to stop doing something. I might say, cut it out. Stop doing that.
Cut out, Michaela, cut out, sorry. Could be mean also like when you have a slice and, for example, you cut out a piece of paper to slice.
Yeah, you could use it in that sense as well, like cut out one slice of pizza from a pie.
Hmm?
That's another way to use it.
Okay.
Good point. We've got a couple definitions for this one.
So I could use that with a person to please shut up, for example, and to use to slice to.
Yes, exactly. Both are possible.
Okay.
All right, so you guys make your sentences using these separable phrasal verbs and write the sentence in the chat box so we can talk about any mistakes made in a very specific way. And if you guys have any questions while you're writing, just let me know and we'll talk about it. Excellent. We have our first sentence. I would like to call off the meeting. Do you think it's all right if I call it off? Excellent. We get two sentences here. We get a bonus sentence. Thank you, Elena. So the first one, you use the full noun and you put it at the end. And then the second one, you use the pronoun and you put it in the middle. So those are both totally correct sentences, and they show the variety of ways we can use this separable verb. Thanks, Elena.
Okay.
Next up, yesterday, and there's a
I have a typing mistake.
Okay, a typo, yeah, no problem. I figured you already were aware. Yesterday, I checked the tickets out, but I didn't see the date of the concert. Awesome. Make sure you have an article before concert because it's a specific concert, probably. Okay. I mean, assuming you already have tickets to it, it's probably specific. Other than that, you used the phrasal verb very well. Thank you, Alessia.
Thank you.
And our next one, Mostafa asked Nancy out to travel on the weekend. Awesome sentence, Mostafa. But this time we would use on the weekend instead of at the weekend. Other than that, it's great.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much, Mustafa. All right, so I'm just waiting for a couple more. No rush, you guys can finish your sentences up as you please. And for the people who have already
Excuse me,
completed,
teacher.
yeah, question?
I cannot type in the chat box because I'm online
Oh,
from the mobile phone.
yeah, sure.
So
So read us your sentence then.
yes, I have in mind they did not bring up the subject at the meeting. Is
Okay.
it correct?
So they did not bring up the subject at the meeting.
At the meeting, yes.
Okay. Excellent sentence. It is correct the way it is. Now, what if I changed the location of the object? Would it also be correct to say they did not bring the subject up at the meeting? Do you think that's also okay?
Yeah,
Yes,
I think so. It's
exactly.
better.
Yeah, well, it's in this form, it's totally not important. If for a separable phrasal verb, you can put the subject in the middle of the phrasal verb or at the end, and there's no difference in meaning. But if we were to say it instead of the subject, they did not bring it up at the meeting, then we would have to put it in the middle. That's the only tough part about the separable ones. So,
Okay.
any questions before we all move on to inseparable phrasal verbs? I'm still waiting on just one sentence, and Adrian, you can take your time with that. Yay, we have it. So we're all together again. I have to cut out working because I am ill. All right, good one. So if we wanted to change working to a pronoun like it, you might say, I have to cut it out because I'm ill. And that would be another very correct way to say the sentence. Thank you, Adrian, for your example. So moving on to inseparable phrasal verbs. The first one I'm going to...
Michaela,
yeah,
I would
question.
like to ask you a question. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's absolutely equal to put the object inside the verb or outside, or it's more casual, perhaps in some way, or not.
If it's the full noun phrase and we're not substituting a pronoun, then it's absolutely equal. You can put it in the middle or at the end. There's no change in meaning. And the only difference there might be is if you want to like emphasize it, but that would also include your tone of voice. So the tone would be more important than where you put it in the sentence. So really, you don't have to worry about it at all if it's the full noun phrase. The only time it becomes really important to know if it's separable or inseparable is if you're using a pronoun to refer to it. And in that case, it sounds really awkward to put the pronoun at the end instead of in the middle.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? This is a pretty tough topic, so hopefully, if you guys are all getting it, I'm impressed. Let's go on to the inseparable now that we're all together. So these are ones where we cannot put the full object in the middle. I'm going to give you guys each an example and ask you to write another sentence. The first one I have is catch up, and I'm going to give that one to Adrian. That one's for you. Catch up, as in to become equal or reach the same level. And it could be literal or figurative, meaning I might say, I ran to catch up with my friend, or you could also say, I caught up on my homework over the vacation. So those are just a couple examples that'll give you a good idea of the definition. The next inseparable one will be check into. That one is for Sajid. Check into as in check into a hotel or check into the airport, maybe.
Okay.
The next inseparable phrasal verb is come across. That one is for Alessia. And come across is like to find.
Okay.
All right. The next inseparable one is drop by, and that's for Elena. You get drop by, which is to visit unexpectedly. The next one we have is get along with. Get along with, one of those 3-word phrasal verbs. And that one's for Mostafa. And it means to have a good relationship with a person. So write your sentences in the chat box, and if you have any questions while you're writing, you're welcome to let me know.
Yes, teacher. We need to check in to our hotel before 9 a.m.
All right. So was that a question or a statement sentence?
It's a statement sentence to explain
Okay.
someone.
We need to check into a hotel before 9 a.m., right?
Yes.
Perfect. Excellently done. Thank you very much, Sajid. Would you like to try another one?
Yeah.
All right. How about get over? And this one means to recover. To recover. So you can get over a sickness or something similar. Write a sentence with that. And whenever you're ready, you can read it to us or just say, hey, teacher, I have my sentence ready, and I'll ask you to read it for us. And in the meantime, we have a couple in the chat box. The first one is, I was running at the park, and I came across the Jenny's dog. He got away while she was cleaning him. Ah, got it. Okay, so you self-corrected. What were you going to say?
No, sorry, I correct myself because it's not ought, got. I don't know if it makes sense.
Not hot, but got. Oh,
The dog,
yeah.
by the way,
Yes, simple mistake, a typo, right?
yes, another one.
Good job. Yeah, I make mistakes typing too. I'm a very inaccurate typer myself, so no problem. So it should be I got away, or he got away while she was cleaning. And it's a perfect sentence in the grammar, except there's one article that we don't need, and that would be the article before Jenny.
Ah, okay, Jenny's dog.
Yep. Excellent. Thanks, Alessia.
Thank you.
Next up, John, I would like you to drop by home from time to time. Awesome. So let's see. Yeah, that works. I really like that sentence. Drop by. And
it's okay because it sounds a bit strange. Perhaps drop by home, my home, or it's okay?
it's okay the way it is, but I agree it does sound a little bit unnatural just because of the way that it's said. And yes, I would say if you said my home or even the house or something, that makes it sound a little bit more natural just because if you were going to say home, it's a little bit obvious. So say like if you're at your house, you could say drop by, and it would be clear that since you're at your house already, that you mean at your house or your home. So it's not necessary, but it's okay like this. It's just a little bit redundant. You have basically, you're clarifying something that's already clear, but it's not incorrect to have it this way.
Okay.
Thanks, Elena. Next one, I got along with my neighbors so fast. Okay, cool. So to translate this sentence, it would be something like, I have a good relationship with my neighbors so fast. Does that sound okay, Mustafa?
Yeah, okay, I got it.
Yeah, it's a good sentence, but it is a little bit awkward where we have that so fast because this is not something that you can just accomplish and then it's finished. You have to, it's like something you have or something you don't have. So in this case, you might say, it didn't take long to get along with my neighbors, or in 2 or 3 weeks, I was getting along with my neighbors, instead of saying so fast. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Thanks. Other than that, it's a great sentence, Mustafa.
Thanks.
And Sajid, how's your sentence coming? Are you ready to read it to us?
Yes, it took me ages up.
It took me what?
It took me ages to get over about the flu.
All right. It took me ages to get over the flu. So we don't need that extra preposition about, but your sentence other than that was great. It took me ages to get over the flu. So it took a long time to recover from the flu. Thank you very much, Sajid. Excellent sentence. And the only other sentence I am looking for here is from Adrian. Adrian, do you have your sentence ready?
No, I can't. Follow.
All right, okay, well, you can continue working, no rush. And I'm going to put a link for you guys in the chat box. It is a list of phrasal verbs that are separable and inseparable. Now, of course, it's really unfortunate that there's no quick and easy way to know if a phrasal verb is separable or inseparable. Of course, you can check a dictionary and you can look online, but if none of those options are available to you, it's pretty hard to know. So you guys can start to make your own list or take some phrasal verbs from here and build off that. So look up some verbs, some phrasal verbs that you really commonly use, and look at whether they're separable or inseparable. It also includes the definition to tons of phrasal verbs. So if you're looking for some new vocabulary, that's also a great resource. And lastly, I'd like you guys to write one more sentence, and this time you choose. Choose a phrasal verb from this list. So pick one that you've never heard before or you really like, and make a sentence with it, and give us a good example of how we can use these phrasal verbs.
Teacher, excuse me, can you read one for me?
Oh, you can't see the link?
Yes, I can see the chat box here.
Ah, I see. So I'll read a couple for you, and then I'll have you choose one from the ones I read you. Is that okay?
Okay, fine.
And then, of course, you can look back later. If you want this link, you can just check out the history of classes and look at this particular chat box. So the first one is call back. That would be separable, and it's to return someone's call. The next one is call in. That's also separable, and it's ask someone into an official place or office. And the last one I'll read for you is call on, and that one's inseparable. So to ask someone to do something or to visit. You can choose one of those phrasal verbs and write a sentence. Is that okay?
Okay, fine.
Thanks.
Teacher, I have a sentence in my mind.
Go ahead, read it for us.
I call in Mustafa at the meeting.
Perfect.
Is it correct?
Called in Mustafa at the meeting. Yeah. So the meeting was happening, and then all of a sudden you realize that Mustafa is an important part of the meeting. Let's get him in here. Let's call in Mustafa, or call him in, which is separable. Thank you very much.
So we cannot add here the second form of called, because it's past tense. I don't know when I call him.
Yeah,
So
in this, unless we add a time phrase, we won't know when it happened, except that it's in the past. So you can easily add a time phrase if you want, like at the meeting on Tuesday.
Or I can say I will call in Mustafa at the meeting.
Yeah,
both are
you
same.
can say that too. In the future, you're going to add in the will, but nothing else will change. Awesome. I'm going to read one more sentence that's in our chat box. I don't want to give my English classes up. Excellent sentence, Elena. Perfect grammar, and I appreciate the sentiment. I'm glad you wouldn't want to give up your English classes.
You know, I love them.
Awesome, that's good to hear. All right, we're still waiting on a couple more. I know it's a long list. There's tons of phrasal verbs, which is really kind of confusing, but it's also a little fun. I think phrasal verbs are kind of fun. They're like a game. You have to, they're complex, but it wouldn't be fun if it weren't difficult. Yeah.
I have another sentence on call back.
Go ahead.
Can you call back this morning, please?
Mm-hmm. And what if you wanted to add an object, another object, instead of the time? You can say, can you call back this morning? But what if I said you need to use the object me? Where would you put me?
After the callback?
In this case, it would be before. Or, I'm sorry, in the middle,
yes.
really.
Can you call me back?
Exactly, because it's
call
separable. We put it in the middle. Call me back is the only option because me is referring to a person. It's a pronoun referring to a person. So we have to put it in the middle. The pronouns have to go in the middle, even though if you wanted to, you could use your name. Like I might say, can you call Michaela back in the morning? But that sounds pretty funny, doesn't it? Because referring to yourself as your own name is just not something that's very commonly done, at least not in English.
Okay.
All right. A couple more sentences in the chat box. If you can put up with Eric. I like it. Oh, I see. There's more to it. Last year, Eric had to put up with everything. Awesome. Excellent. The second sentence is definitely better than the first. So, Alessia, why is the first one a little funny?
What's it again? Sorry.
Your second sentence is perfect, but your first sentence is actually pretty odd sounding or almost incomplete. Do you know why the first sentence is a little funny? The one that is, if you can put up with Eric?
Because it's a conditional sentences with if, and maybe I will use another type of verbs like will, put. No.
You're totally right. It is a conditional sentence. So the problem we have there is that we actually need two different parts of the sentence. So you might finish that sentence with, if you can put up with Eric, you are a better person than I am. Or if you can put up with Eric, I will give you $100.
Okay. If
And the second one is,
if I don't add if in the first part, I could say you can put like imperative.
yeah. If you don't add that if, you can just
Mm.
say you can put up with Eric. Awesome.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so we're a little bit over time. I'm going to have to close the class, but if you guys have more sentences, send me them on Facebook, and I'll let you know if they're perfect or if they need any little corrections. Do you guys have any last comments or questions before we head out today?
No, for me not. Have a good day.
Okay. You too, guys. Thanks. Bye.
Thank you and goodbye.